So here in Rexburg, we are on a here on the BYU Idaho farm. We're on a 4-year rotation, so we're going to be doing wheat for 3 years of this study and potatoes for 1 year of the study. This year we happen to be in wheat. Anyway, I want to just do a quick overview on this. I know Matt talked about it some, but quickly go review what he mentioned. What we're really interested in this study is looking at how different fertilizer practices may benefit us and how they interact with each other. And so as mentioned earlier, we're looking at 4 different aspects of fertilizers and fertilizer management. That would include our right source, our right rate, our right time, and right place. Now for our growers here in Idaho, and I think it would apply to those in Utah as well, I'm just going to break down and talk about some of the options that are out there that could be considered when we think about about those 4 R's: the right source, rate, time, and place. The first one is our right source, and at least here in Idaho, our most commonly used fertilizer, of course, is going to be urea. There may be some situations where we are using urea ammonium nitrate or UAN solution 32, but new to the market in the last handful of years, and even more so as the cost of these enhanced fertilizers have come down, are a couple different products that are out there. Super U, which uses a urease inhibitor to slow down the conversion of the urea into ammonium and nitrate, therefore kind of making it in a way a slow release fertilizer. And then polymer coated urea. An example of that product is ESN, or environmentally smart nitrogen. As far as the urease inhibitors go, there are other products. You can see down here I have a picture of urea coated with agrotane, and then a side product of Limus produced by BASF. Anyway, so those are a couple options that we have out there and could be considering when we think about right source. What's the right source for my field and for my crop? Okay. And are these enhanced efficiency products, fertilizers, are they bringing an economic benefit to us? Are they improving, say, our protein content, our yield quality, as well as our overall yield? And then also the effect, are they reducing the amount of leached nitrate or ammonium volatilization? Next is rate. And so one of the things, a lot of us have focused our rates over the years on what we call an expected yield or a yield goal basis. Up here in the corner here, I'll use my mouse here to point, just simply shows the recommendation given by the University of Idaho in their crop management guides. And so you can see we have, if your expected yield here, what you expect your yield to be based on your past history and how much nitrogen you should apply. Depending on your rate, that could vary with a ratio of 1.75 to about 2. So on the low yields, you're looking at more of a ratio of 2, and on high yields, 1.75. We also adjust that rate, of course, based off of the amount of soil nitrogen in a soil nitrate test. We adjust that for the amount we expect to mineralize from organic matter, and then you may have some other sources such as irrigation, previous crop factors that might play into that, as talked about by Colin. Following alfalfa, we might give ourselves some nitrogen credit for that as well. So those are all things that we consider when we look at rates, but especially, again, looking at the interactions between these different management practices. Should we be using the same rate here? These are really kind of based on our conventional fertilizers, but should we be using the same rates if we're using an enhanced efficiency product, which should have a higher nitrogen use efficiency? And so if it's got higher nitrogen use efficiency, shouldn't we be able to dial back those rates? And so that's one of the things we're interested in is can we bring and maybe apply at 75%, for example, 75% of our yield goal based N rate. Okay, a couple other things that we want to look at and consider, of course, is timing, and a pre-plant versus an at-planting versus a flag leaf application. For most of us, and I know here in Southeast Idaho, here on the BYU Idaho farm, our typical practice is a pre-plant application followed by a flag leaf to boost our protein levels. I think that's pretty common. But again, when we look at the interactions that may be going on among these different nitrogen management practices, again, we have with ESN and Super U, we've got more of a slow release. So can we put more nitrogen up front and skip that flag leaf application? And so again, should we be, if we're using a enhanced efficiency product, for example, should we be altering our timing? Are we getting that benefit from a flag leaf application, for example? Okay, the last one we have here, of course, is place. And traditionally, we broadcast our fertilizer on. That could be broadcast, as you can see here, with a spreader, but also fertigating it on, as we do often here in Southeast Idaho when we're putting it on at the flag leaf application. But one of the things that has become quite interesting, of interest to some of our growers here in Southeast Idaho, is putting it on in a planting band. So putting, about 20 units of nitrogen down in our planter band, about 20 pounds of nitrogen. And the other thing that's interesting about that, and in discussion with some of my colleagues in the fertilizer industry, is even with the seed at planting may become even more of an option, especially when we're using the enhanced efficiency products. Essentially, some of the data that we've seen on that is that we may even be able to, if we're using these enhanced efficiency products, because of the slow rate of urea hydrolysis, we might be able to actually increase the amount of nitrogen that we put with the seed. And some studies have shown, and I'm not suggesting it because I haven't seen enough studies, but I've seen studies that suggest as much as 50 and 60 pounds of nitrogen with the seed if we're using something like a polymer-coated urea. Okay, and again, that was some preliminary data, but suggests that we might be able to do something like that. Okay, anyway, so just to kind of tie this together, so here at the BYU Idaho Farm, you can see here on the left-hand side a couple of pictures that we have of the plots here. In fact, you can see, if you look really close, you can see the T-post out there containing the soil moisture data loggers that Matt talked about earlier. So here's kind of our treatment plan and what we're looking at here at BYU Idaho. We established a grower standard practice as 100% N rate based on yield goal. Our source was urea. We did pre-plant with that. There wasn't any actually at planting with that application. So at the time it was pre-plant, source was urea, and the placement was all broadcast pre-plant. It is true though that one of the things we would do is, and I think in a standard grower, in a grower standing practice, is we definitely would put fertilizer on at flag leaf. The reason why I didn't put that as in my grower standard practice is simply because when we look at all the different combinations that we're using of those 4 R's, that standard practice of 100% yield goal and putting nitrogen on at flag leaf is one of those iterations. And so that's why it's not under the grower standard practice. When we look at our 4R treatments, or our alternative treatments for each of those 4 R's, for our rate, we looked at reducing that rate to 75% of the yield goal based rate. Our source was to use an enhanced efficiency urea. In this case, we used ESN, a polymer coated urea. And then although I will mention that all flag leaf applications will and were using UAN 32, solution 32. Our timing that we're looking at is both looking at our pre-plant and then our flag leaf application. And then placement is looking at broadcast pre-plant and then at planting, again, 20 pounds of nitrogen with the seed. And we did both for urea and our enhanced product, ESN, were both put down at 20 pounds of nitrogen per acre. Although it would be interesting, and I think more studies need to be done looking at what rates we can do with those enhanced efficiency products in a pre-plant, with a seed at planting application. Again, irrespective of treatment, if it called for a flag leaf application, we put down UAN as our application, because most of our farmers here are going to fertigate that on through their center pivots. Okay, again, this is a busy slide. It's the same busy slide that Matt showed just a few minutes ago, but and I don't want to go through it all just like Matt didn't, but it simply shows all those different combinations that we were using in order to meet those rates, and look at the different interactions and different combinations. So essentially we're looking at, we have everything from a control, our low, and an average, but then we're looking at just modifying the rate, modifying the source, modifying the time, and the placement treatments, and then the subsequent combinations of all those different combinations that you can come up with, which gets us to that 18 different treatments. And I think the key here is there are a lot of different options. In conclusion, I'm going to actually fly back up here to my original slide here. When we think about it, I think one of the things that's complicated is there are a lot of choices out there. And sometimes we think, oh yeah, in order to be a progressive farmer, I've got to alter my source, my rate, my time, and my place. I got placement. I got to look at all those things and alter them. And I think in the end, we're going to find that, yeah, some of those definitely can be tweaked to improve things, but maybe not all of them need to be. In fact, and so that's going to be one of the things that we discover. And I think more than anything, especially as we move more and more to these enhanced efficiency products and the price comes down on them, we really do need to revisit a lot of these such things as right placement and right rate with them. And so we don't, this is our first year of the study, so no real results other than these pretty pictures that I can provide for you. Where's those pretty pictures? I had them here somewhere. There's those pretty pictures. So that's our results so far, is those pretty pictures.